So that's it then, build complete. Hope you enjoyed that. So hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Something pretty special for you today. We've got an Atherton downhill bike straight from the UK. Custom made, custom geometry, carbon tubes, bonded into 3D printed titanium lugs. We're gonna do a full downhill bike build today. So let's go and check out the parts. Let's go and say hi to Chris, get a coffee and crack on with the build. Weather's a bit crap, so I'm hoping it dries out in the next couple of days so we can give this bike a good test. So see you in a bit. Measure once, cut 3 times, yeah?
Yeah. Like you, I'm a firm believer in a tool for everything.
I think you're not twatting it hard enough, mate.
Really not, are I?
No. Give it a good old twat. I prefer the bolt and the brick technique. So welcome back to the cave. Sorry about the noise in the background. You can hear that's Chris downstairs installing the star nut into the steerer tube. I told him to piss off downstairs. He's making way too much noise up here. So this is the frame. It's an Atherton downhill frame. It's got mandrel wrapped carbon tubes which are bonded into 3D printed or laser sintered titanium lugs. Now the titanium lugs on this, Chris requested to be, made black, so the frame doesn't look that naturally, obviously handmade. It's a complete custom bike, and without that, I think it was about £3,500. So considering this is fully handmade, custom made, comparing that to other bike prices and frame only prices, particularly like road bikes, it's actually really, really good value considering all the hardware, the shock and everything that you get with it. We're just gonna, before we build the frame up, take a look at some of the features and the engineering that they've done on it. Just little things, simple little things like for the caliper mounts, you've just got simple barrel nuts, which are replaceable on the disc mount, and obviously to some extent self-aligning. So that's a really nice feature. So, if you strip a thread or something happens, you don't have to replace the whole mount, or you wouldn't be able to, it'd be a write-off. So the use of like replaceable barrel nuts in there is really nice. So these carbon tubes are mandrel wrapped, I believe, which should give better uniformity, wall thickness and low voids rather than having it internally bladder molded like most mass-produced carbon bikes. And then like I mentioned earlier, the lugs are nicely designed with a double lap joint, I think, so plenty of glue area, and they're actually tapered down at the end, which is how you would design a glued lap joint, from a very stiff component into a more flexible one, and that tapers the stiffness of the part to give the glue an easier time. Basically, it should increase the bond strength. If you had a very abrupt sharp edge here with a lot of thickness and a lot of stiffness, you put the edge of the glue right in the corner under a lot of stress and it'd start to peel easier. So all those glue joints have tapered walls to the lugs, which is exactly what you want. So they looks like they've been designed properly. I think this is an aluminium CNC rocker plate. I think that's not titanium. Lots of custom hardware. Obviously the bottom bracket is 3D printed as part of this lug as well, and then the threads are cut and it's been faced. So the alignment of that will be really interesting to see when we install the bearings and spin the cranks, how good that is. But that's been done probably on a milling machine, so the tolerance of that and the concentricity between this side and the other side should be really good. Now, I was interested to see how granular the 3D printing was when you actually then cut into it to see if it's kind of grainy, but it actually just looks really, really solid, quite uniform. There's no graininess to the appearance after it's been cut. Big rubber chainstay protector, which has been bonded on from the factory. That's quite nice. And is this custom geometry on this, Chris?
Yeah.
So what did you change? Like, they obviously give you a stock kind of template to choose from. So what did you change in terms of geometry?
I can't remember fully, but I think it's just slightly longer reach for me.
Slightly longer reach from this. You were kind of between sizes, right?
Between large and an XL.
So you wanted a large, but the XL was a bit too big, so you asked to have a slightly longer reach. And I think they can modify or see the geometry quite easily just by changing the lugs and the length of the carbon tube. So you might think all of these bits of hardware are just stock, kind of off the shelf bolts. It does look quite industrial, but actually they're not. They're all custom made, because if you feel, there's a tiny little spigot in the middle, which is just a sign that it's been done on a lathe basically, and everything that's threaded on the lugs, apart from the bottom bracket, is completely replaceable separate part. So like here, the through axle isn't threaded into the lug itself, it's a separate replaceable part. So if you've stripped that or damaged that thread in any way, the lugs are, you know, they're fine. You're not gonna have to replace the lugs. Same with the mech hanger, that's a separate part. Barrel nuts on the caliper mount, stuff like that. So parts wise, we're going for Fox 4Ws and wheels.
7.34.
Some pretty nice Santa Cruz Reserve wheels with Chris King hubs. Gone all bling. Chris, that steer tube looks a bit short. Are you sure you cut that correctly?
Fuck off.
Fuck
No,
me up.
do I want to stab you in the face? Yes.
I better hide that knife. Normally what I do is I like to put 2 in to start off with and see how that goes, and then you can always put more fingers in. Oh, lube it. Are you sponsored by Muck Off, Chris?
I'm not sponsored by Muck Off. I'm not sponsored by anything. So if they want to send me a bunch of shit, I'm happy to try and get some of that ass lube stuff.
How are you going to hold that in, mate?
My hand.
Alright. That's a properly designed top cap. Look at that rubber seal on there. The camera won't focus, will it? No. Oh, it's gone for more lube. He does like that lube, doesn't he? Look. It's Christmas.
Good greasy. Will ease its passage.
Ease its passage. Sounds like metal filings in there as well, doesn't it?
Such a wind-up merchant. Let's see what it really sued.
Haha! That's very tight, isn't it?
That was rubber seal.
It's very tight. Yeah, there was a rubber seal on there. It's mashed. That's an aluminium bolt. Don't ever do that.
You judging me?
Yeah.
I'll put a steel one in later. If
Only tarts use aluminium bolts.
Yeah, but it's green.
Might as well put a fucking cheese bolt in there.
If you could refrain from putting that on the internet, that'd be great.
Too late. Chris just asked me to get a couple of refreshments. Not much progress.
No.
Okay.
Cheers, mate.
So you're going through 2 holes at once with that one, Chris? Do you normally do 2 holes at once?
I'll do as many as I can do.
Okay, good. So you got the Park Tool wiring kit. You actually lent me that for my road bike,
Yeah,
which is very
it's
handy.
useful.
Yeah,
Occasionally.
but it's not doesn't seem to be working right now. Right. I'll do another video when he's found the tip.
Oh, it's because it's curled around inside of itself.
Ah, I often get that. You know, if it's not stiff enough when you put it in,
Yeah.
it can sometimes bend back on itself. It's actually quite painful. So we just put the line in for the rear brake. It's actually quite difficult, even with this kit. I think the inside of these lugs is all ribbed to strengthen it, so it's quite sticky to get the magnetic wire through. Also, because of these lugs being quite thick, the magnetic strength on the end of the wire was not great, but it's there in the end. It wasn't too difficult.
Where is the lid for the grease gone?
Too early, is it? Trick Stuff brakes.
There's trick.
The most expensive brakes on the market, aren't they?
No, these are the Directissimas.
They're not the most expensive brakes.
These are the Directissimas, so they're not. No.
Well, basically you're a fucking cheapskate. I mean, why didn't you go for the most expensive
I know,
parts?
I'm such a...
You've only gone for these.
I'm slumming it.
And how long did you have to wait for these?
They came with the bike frame.
Came with the bike frame, but normally you can't order them for
18 months?
18 months.
I know that because I've got some Maxinos on order for the other bikes.
Some lumps of aluminium. I'm sure they're very good. So Chris thought he might have to swap the levers over to get moto style brakes, because obviously he's from the UK and these are supplied by the Germans, but because they've been secondary supplied by Atherton, they're actually the right way up. So left brake is that one, which is set up the right way, which is the rear brake with a longer hose, and that's the one we want to fit before the bottom bracket, because the hose needs to go, you know, in there and out. The design of these looks a little bit 90s, but I guess that's Germans for you, and I actually quite like that. It's quite simple machining. Have you got any spare olives?
No.
No. Oh well. You can mush them again.
I'm not saying that. I'd like to believe that because of where I got the brakes from and
The
the frame,
Athertons.
and the frame, the way it was built,
Yeah.
that I'm going to be able to not have to take the fucking flange off the end of this hose, because the holes would have been machined or
Big
printed big enough.
Well, that clearly hasn't worked, has it? So whilst you're getting metal filings in that, I'm going to put the brake rotors on. So we're 2 hours in and we've made great progress. We can't get the trick stuff lines through the frame without completely removing the end fitting. We thought we could get away with it, but the very end fitting won't go through the chainstay. So
How are you at bleeding brakes, by the way?
I'm alright at bleeding brakes.
Good, because I'm shit.
Chris is making a trick stuff vice clamp, and we're going to try and take that end union off the brake line. Right, so we just spent literally an hour trying to feed the rear brake. 5mm?
Yeah, 5mm.
That's not an M5 then, technically. But there we are.
Alright.
Yeah, so we just spent literally an hour putting the rear brake cable through, rear brake hose through, because Chris broke the ending of the park tool kit.
We live and die as a team.
So a few round turn half-hitch knots. That is more technical and a better fix than the park tool kit. Now the rear brake is in.
Fucking far easier than the magnet, wasn't it?
The lever's on. Yeah, it's much better than magnets. It's a waste of money. And yeah, calipers going on. Chris is just putting the fitting back in the end of the hose. Much nicer than the Shimano one where you have to have a separate brass barb which you have to whack in.
With Shimano you get instructions.
But you get Shimano, yeah, you get instructions. With this you don't. It's up to you. But this one you basically just, the barb is threaded, so you thread it into the end of the hose. And there's no olive. It's a crush fitting. So it's actually quite nice and simple to do. Once you know how. My contribution was putting the Turp mech on. It's got quite a nice little lock there and a clutch which ratchets. Interesting to see these pistons are not ceramic.
I was going to put anti-seize compound in there.
Too late. Get your finger in and around. Give it a good fingering.
Ease it in.
Yeah, I like the action.
Should I take it out so you can film it?
Yeah, take it out again so I can film it. This is like OnlyFans.
Oh, it is a bit.
Yeah. Right, now you can put it back in again.
Cross-thread it and fuck it right up.
Go on, put it back in. I'm filming now.
No pressure.
Put it back in.
Look,
quick.
I can't perform under pressure.
Quick, put it back in. You've got stage fright now. Maybe you
to-
shouldn't start OnlyFans.
This happens to everybody. I really have.
Oh, the pressure's getting to him, look. Trembling.
Can't get the fucker flush. There it is.
She going in? Cross-threaded to fuck. Ream its way in. Hope say this bottom bracket cut requires 50 Newton meters, and they've supplied a blade of steel to apply 50 Newton meters. So Chris is going to slice his hand off doing that.
Big time. In fact, I'm just going to work the grease on that.
Look, he's going for more grease. He fucking loves the grease, doesn't he? You'd have thought they'd put a bit of rubber handle on that tool.
Hope is always very industrial, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look at that. It's just laser cut steel blade. Do not slip. You calibrated to 50 Newton meters. Just about to.
Like
you're going to slip and slice through the carbon.
My arm is a carefully calibrated precision machine. After years as a teenager.
So we just put the cranks in and the Merc chain device, but it's going to have to come on and off a few times to get the spacing of the guides right over the chain, we think, because we're not quite sure how it comes set default with the chain line. So unfortunately that means taking the cranks off every time and then putting washers between the ISCG mount or something, and then spacing out the back plate. But we'll see how it goes.
My, what a big tool you've got, Grandma.
It's not 180, mate.
What?
It's not 180 degrees.
What do you mean it's not 180?
Cranks are not spaced 180.
They're not?
Yeah, they are.
It's annoying that they don't index things like that, isn't it?
What, so it's one way?
Hmm.
Yeah. But you'd have to be pretty fucking stupid not to do it at 180.
You would.
I think Shimano road cranks, you can't. Don't think you can do that wrong. But I don't know. I haven't tried. I'm just too clever. It's quite annoying, these tapered splines. So they don't fall off. You have to get your big tool in without using your hands. So we were joking about 180 degrees, and I was genuinely joking, but this is what I'm dealing with. What a fucking idiot. So after checking the user manual, Chris has found out that the cranks actually need to be installed 180 degrees apart. Right, I'll hold it level, look. I'll hold it level.
I was going to say, give me a frame.
Do you want me to get a spirit level out? Right. Are you sure that's good?
I'm actually not convinced.
How many teeth are on the spline? It can't be that difficult.
It can't be that different.
Fucking hell. Back off the preload and we'll cheat the spin test. I won't put that bit in, don't worry.
Okay.
Don't tell the Athertons. Right, 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Does it spin on its own? No. I mean, I would send that back. I would send that back, mate. Do you think Hambini would be happy with that? It's Hambini orange. Yeah. So you're going to crank that down to 50 Newton meters. I think you have to get your hands on another big tool for that job. Wind in the preloader. Hopefully it doesn't deadlock before we start preloading it. Look at that, it's actually mega smooth. Not bad for a Welsh garage, isn't it? And Chris is just setting the angle of the dangle of the forks. Just putting the rotors on, that's my job, that's all I'm qualified to do. Just looking at these 6-bolt rotors. There's no actual concentric alignment to how to align the rotor to the hub concentrically. You're just at the mercy of the bolt holes. Pretty shit, isn't it? Just looking at the facing of the disc mounts, how perpendicular the disc mounts are to the frame, that is pretty damn good. You must have a very good bonding jig back in Wales. You look how square the rotor is to the caliper when it's bolted down. That shows you how well these are faced. Chris is grunting. Must be lunchtime.
Fucking horrible chain in my hands.
Chain length next. The shittiest job of them all. So whilst Chris is getting some more metal filings and cutting new threads on the pedals, I've set up the rear mech. I'm very proud of that. Actually shifts really well.
Take your own horn.
Oh, you're going back to this side with that one, are you?
I am.
This side. You tried right, tried left. Have you tried up and down?
It's like a USB socket, right?
Alright, wrong way. Drive sides clockwise. There you go. But you've probably got the left pedal there. You have! Should say left and right on it. Yep. Does say left and right on it. Sorry, that's... Time check, what are we at? Nearly 2 o'clock. Fucking hell. Lunchtime, innit?
Actually, I haven't had any breakfast yet.
Right, now I'm watching him do it up backwards. Oh no, it's got it. Right, so what we got to do, we've done the rear mech, done the chain length. That's it, just brake bleed now, isn't it?
Front wheel brake lead,
Quick
brake pads.
free hub sound check.
Leave the stem bolts in place.
Mm. She's finished. So what jobs are left over?
Bleed.
Bleed the brakes, which they're not bad at the moment. Put the pads in. What do you mean pin the pads?
Get an actual pin for the pads.
What's wrong with a bit of cable? Nothing wrong with a bit of cable. Bleed the brakes, pin the pads in more securely, but I think they're fine.
More securely.
That's my validated approach.
Fettle the cockpit so
Fiddle around with this TRP shifter.
so it's in the right place. I think it needs to come inside the brake.
I don't know how that works.
But
It's
then if it
very
does-
odd. Ergonomics are very odd. Yeah, cut the seat post, another job.
It's actually not that sad.
Any more head tube angle, you're going to snap the frame in half.
Yeah.
That is slack. Yeah, straight through a puddle. Never learn. How did I set up the gears, mate? Pretty good.
Sweet.
Yeah, pretty good. That was the worst manual I've ever seen. How does it pedal uphill, mate? How does it pedal uphill? So we think the head angle might be a bit too slack, but we can't drop the stanchions
Too much more.
through the crowns because they'll then hit the bars. So, do you think they're too slack, or do you think that's about right? Do you feel like when you when you're stood up, they're binding because they're so slack on the bushes?
I don't think so.
It looks all right. It looks all right when you're stood up. When you're sat down, it looks like they're binding. They won't sag. Yeah, it pedals really well. You can see in that slow-mo there's a bit of a kickback. It does pedal well. Happy?
Very.
Handmade in Wales, what are you saying? Is it doable? It's
I
doable.
think so.
I think you might need a heavier spring on it though.
Yeah. So that's fine.
Oh, it's quite saggy,
You
isn't
can
it?
actually wind out the bike. You can wind out the reach.
With the heavier spring on the back, it's gonna, as you squat, it's gonna put more weight on the front, so you won't get that like rocking back motion. It'll load up the fork a bit if the rear doesn't squat. Does look good. I'm happy with that. So that's it then, build complete. Hope you enjoyed that. The bike went together really well, actually really easily. It's pretty well designed. Internal cable routing and stuff like that was okay. Save for a few mishaps with the Park Tool routing kit. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that. See you in the next one.